feel like whenever we're playing a team from the East Coast, the announcers are always in favor of the East Coast team. I feel like they're always saying all these wonderful things about the East Coast team and how wonderful Peyton Manning is, and they don't really say a lot about the Seahawks. And it's like, before the game even starts, they're biased against the Seahawks. Bias. Does anyone know what that means? Bias? Yes?
To favor someone over someone else? Or have a, yes, I'll answer that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the definition that I got is that it's a feeling or a preference. It's so different to write on a chalkboard. And it often keeps you from judging something fairly, right? Can anyone think of any examples from their life of bias? Colleen.
When I would play coach pitch, I would play with all the boys, and there were only 2 girls in the league. And since I was a girl, they always put me in the outfield because they thought I sucked.
Oh.
Wow.
That's full on discrimination.
You need to talk to somebody. Anything else? Anyone else? Zach?
Richard Sherman is biased on his side that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I'd say that's a bias towards himself.
I thought you were saying something about Richard Sharman.
No.
That's my world.
Richard Sherman is biased towards Pacific Northwest history. So I have another example, and this actually happened to me just this last weekend. And I went to my husband's family's house for Thanksgiving, right? And they're all dog lovers. They're big dog lovers. And we're all sitting around the table, and everyone starts talking about how their dog is the best dog, right? So as this conversation's happening, I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. No. My dog is the world's best dog. I mean, oh no, you can't see. Oh, there he is. Look at him. Everyone's not to love world's best dog. But clearly, I have a preference, right? So I can't judge necessarily very fairly that he's the best dog in the world, right? I mean, I'm sure you all have the best dogs in the world. But, I mean, really. Okay, so today, can you all see this?
Yeah.
Okay. Today, we are going to identify bias. Do you remember this word, identify? It means to find, right? To pick out. So today we're going to find bias. So I'm going to show you a photograph in the next slide. And I want you to pull out a piece of scratch paper, if possible. And for 30 seconds or so, I want you to just write down what you see. Write down any observations, maybe what you think is going on in the photo, and just think about it for 30 seconds or so. Can you see it okay? Wow.
That really helps.
Okay, finish up your thoughts. So what is this photograph about? What's going on in this photograph? Any ideas? Zach?
Some kind of child labor?
Yeah. Yeah, now what is it in this photograph that makes you think that?
Probably the machines in the background. Maybe those
Yeah.
are machines.
Machines and children?
Looks like some kind of textile, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Is it a bobbin factory or something like that?
Yeah, it's actually a cotton mill factory. So maybe you activated some prior knowledge in your brain and you were thinking, gosh, I know that there was child labor in the early 1900s and that looks like an old photo. Maybe you were thinking that. But yeah, there's machines and there's children. and it's a child labor photograph, right? So everything in this photo is real, right? I mean, this is a real place, right? These are real people, right?
Yes.
But does this photograph still have a message?
Yes.
What do you think the message is? Colin?
There's only white kids somewhere.
That's true. That's true. Not terribly unusual for this time of year. Yes.
Child labor is bad.
Child labor is bad. Good. That's the answer I'm looking for, Antia. So the question is, what in this photograph sends you that message? What details do you see that make you think it's bad? Yeah.
They look like kids, but they look like really old people at the same time.
Yeah, so the characters, right? Serena?
They're like dirty, and there's one kid that's barefoot. So
Yeah.
it's like they're poor.
Yeah. So maybe clothing. One kid is even missing some shoes down here. Yeah, Lexi.
Their faces, none of them look happy.
Yeah, expressions. They all look real sad. Antia?
The lighting.
The lighting?
Like,
Yeah.
it's coming down on their faces from the windows.
Oh.
Yeah, so it sets a mood too, right? We can see mood. Anything else? Zach?
I was gonna say they're already using adult-like tools, like that kid
Yeah.
has an open knife.
So objects, that he includes objects, the photographer does? Yeah, is that a knife? I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Well, it's a tool related to cotton mills. That's good. What do you think this giant thing is here? What is that? Colleen?
Is that a video camera?
Like an old, like real camera.
Maybe. It's definitely a piece of machinery, right? And I don't know how, well, you can see it pretty well. I mean, it's kind of blocking this whole girl, right? There's this sense that maybe this machinery is sort of overtaking the kids, right? So this is just a side note, but it will be important later for a part that none of you will see. But where else do we see these kinds of ideas? Where else do we talk about characters? Where else do we talk about mood? Where else do we talk about those kinds of ideas, Colleen?
Stories?
Yeah, when we read, right? So, as we go through this lesson, do you think we might be thinking about how we can also apply it to our reading? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So, back to the photo. So we've talked about how these are the tools our photographer is using to send us this message that child labor is bad, right? So is there any clues in this photo as to maybe how this photographer is biased? That maybe before he walked into this factory, he thought to himself, child labor is bad, I'm going to go show that. Yes?
Maybe he walked into the room and was like, oh, you don't have shoes on, you're perfect for this image. Or, oh, you are obviously been working 18 hours today, you look really tired.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you didn't notice these kids are all lined up, right? I mean, do you think he found them like that? Do you think he found them all in a line? Kind of in order of height a little bit. Do you think he picked out this kid because he didn't have shoes on a little bit? Yeah.
I would also say that, photographers normally tell you to smile, and I don't think that was happening here. Not maybe the kids just ignored the photographer, but I would assume that he probably wasn't telling them to smile.
Yeah. And it is, I know that in old photos, really old photos, they don't smile because photography took such a long time, but this is past that daguerreotype era, so these kids could have shown some kind of facial expression. Yeah.
The age, how young they start.
Yeah?
You might have someone young and then someone older to show how long they might have been there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, this photograph is showing bias, right? Because there's this sense that before he walked into the factory, he had this idea that child labor was bad and that he was going to use very specific techniques. I mean, even this machine thing here and the types of kids he would choose to show this point, right? So what I want us to do is I want us to partner up And I want you to think about the flip side. So pretend that you are a photographer and you're about to walk into a factory and you are pro-child labor. I know that's weird because during this time kids were losing limbs and it's not something that you want to say that you're in favor of, but just go with it. So you are in favor of child labor, okay? And I want you to discuss with this partner what kinds of choices you're going to make. What kinds of characters would you include to show pro-child labor? What kinds of clothing and expressions are these kids going to have? What kind of lighting and mood are going to help this idea of child labor being the bee's knees? So I want you to do that. And then when you've discussed it, I think it would be really fun to draw your photo. So I think you should, on this piece of graph paper, draw out your photo, and then if we have time at the end, you can share it on our lovely document camera. So, go.
Okay. I'm gonna play a little less of photography with me.
And I promised them that I was going to give them ice cream after the pictures so that they would be happy.
I'd probably want to pick the kind of plump ones with like the big and maybe a little roses for you. Innocent. And a representation of ethnicities in the because everyone loves child labor.
I'm sure they would think maybe there's no like by them that kind of
Guiding them almost like they're having like an internship. Like, hey, look, see this? Oh yeah, good point. And maybe some extra lighting so that it's kind of more inside.
background. Probably have lots of light, have it light. And,
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, I think it would just focus like one or two people at one machine instead of showing all of them, because I don't think I would want them to see like a whole room full of
it's like,
yeah, this is awesome. I want to see more personal.
busy clean.
Yeah, okay. So,
I don't want to have this. I kind of want to focus in, not so much.
should we start drawing a bit? I can only do stick figures. I'm going to have a little loom like they have in there.
Okay.
So we have like
So I don't know if I can draw a good piece of it. It's going to be
maybe
like...
there's have like a
Maybe just like how someone is like station or like just focus It doesn't have to be the scale because we don't want them to look so tight.
I know.
Those laws were in place when I was a kid, so, you know, she wouldn't have been able to save up anything, so factories are a little different.
Yeah. Factories are a little different.
A little different.
14 minutes.
Missing limbs. No big deal.
Have you read the book, The Daring Ladies of Lowell? It's about not necessarily just because they start having this farming families to make their own way and to choose a different life. And like it goes through like some of the things that they have to deal with, like breathing in the fibers, and they get this cough that could kill them, and like dealing with the safety issues of like these things running, and like the girls would get their hair stuck in it and get like yanked up.
So Lewis Hines is this photographer, and he's a social photographer, so he does all kinds of these kinds of photographs. And there's one of this little kid, and he's like standing, balancing on 2 pegs on this machine, and he's like rotating something with his